Hi, people. I want to talk candidly about the times we are in because it seems very difficult to find the truth wherever we look these days. The people in authority have very little natural affinity with us anymore. What used to be known as noblesse oblige, a sense of duty towards one's own people, has deliberately been broken down. More stateless people, more cosmopolitan ideology that's prevalent in certain groups and in cities has overruled all those previous kindnesses. It's very difficult to find or remake that kind of affinity. I was a lost soul out in the world. I was a candle in the wind. I left home at 16. I needed to find affinity with people. I was very blessed as well as very cursed. I found people who I knew had a certain connection to me, almost divine, almost just being one. I couldn't explain it to you, it's astonishing. So I know about seeking affinity, seeking natural affection, natural being drawn to people for the right reasons, not flattering others for advantage, as our middle classes and upper classes and elites seem to do. They seem to want to know people more for what they can get, how they fit in. This is where I came a cropper, because in middle class societies you have to fit in. They're not very forgiving unless you don't fit in one of the trendier ways. I didn't fit in a trendier way. They see you as a potential sort of troublemaker, somebody who's got a grievance. If you don't sort of act in the polite fashion or the way that's expected. Therefore, these people in these levels really don't get what's been going on in society. The absolute targeting of people who don't find it so easy to do the small talk. Targeting of people in the Rotherham, Rochdale, Manchester, or survivors generally, who find it harder to do the small talk and fit in, who have got intrinsic survival strength that can seem challenging and frightening to them because they rely on having the correct papers more and more these days. Get their children into university, push, hothouse, make sure that they don't fall into a position where they're vulnerable, because, you know, they know what it's like and they'll exploit it for all it's worth too. If one of them is rejected for being abused, being an abuser, you know, being an abuser is generally more accepted because they have the same ethic. An abuser will want to support image, and it is about image these days, which is what I write about a lot in my book. They've changed the dynamic though, they've changed the archetype, and for Europeans the archetype, having a good archetype was always very important. But now it's more like the Hollywood deranged version, the perverse version, which is written about in my book Perversity Culture of the End Times. Now these are the end times of Christian civilization as we knew it. Even our church is telling us, our leaders are telling us in a way who to vote for, who to support, because, you know, they support this rabbi because he says, you know, the Labour Party can't be trusted. You know, they'll be blowing up putting blimps of people. It's so third world, you know. I mean, it's primitive to rouse people up in that way, and to have these celebrities come and tell us who to vote for. They have no connection to the grassroots. Whatever grassroots means anymore. We've been supplanted. This is not a far-right thing. This is war against the seed I'm talking about here, a biblical thing, where any Christian knows, maybe not the head of the Church of England, because he says now that we are inherently racist in the Church of England, which I think is absolute garbage and self-destructive nihilism of our day, which is the war against the seed again, and the fact that it says in the end days the Church will not be talking about the true prophecies, the end time ones that I write about in my book. My book is quite vital for our times. I don't want to overplay it because I'm not selling myself here, far from it. There are going to be many of you who dislike what I say, understandably so, if you can't digest it, if you haven't got the sort of learning branches to digest it, if you've learnt a certain way that this is how the world is, it's going to be difficult. But nonetheless, I mean, I won't give up on your ever learning if you can't accept it now, maybe one day when it becomes more clear what's happening. Okay, I talked about the hierarchy and the archetypes changing. Look at the Book of Jude. There are those among you now who have who flatter others for advantage, feeding only themselves, rootless, waves of foam, fault finders, grumblers, feeding only themselves, uprooted, twice dead. So it's really talking about rootless people and waves of foam, foaming waves. All these apocalyptic kind of comments and expressions that, you know, add up when you read bits and pieces all over the place. So now we're seeing the denaturing in a very, very, very large scale now, in Europe and in the West. Decolonisation, I'll call it, but it's denaturing. Many branches of this taking root now with Soros funding. We are talking firstly about how you know, those natural affinities are being broken down, because, you know, they talk about playground best friends and things. It doesn't stop there. It's on every level. We are now meant to be, you know, all separate, all individual, supposedly free. But no, the rules are very far from free. When you talk about replacing national identity, because obviously we have to ameliorate so many alternative families today, and that's understandable, and it's the kind and righteous thing for a Christian to do, but not to the point where it eliminates yourself, because the Good Samaritan principle was crossing the road despite the person being of another, you know, potential enemy, competitor situation, person, not because of. If you do because of, that loses the complete morality of it, and it's just reversed and meaningless. So when I say now we've been changed, it says in the book of Daniel they'll change times and customs. We've been changed almost to be almost irrecognisable to ourselves, and what we see reflected of our archetypes back to us, and more Hollywood now. Our royalty is more Hollywood. There's no grassroots. What is that? What does that mean anymore anyway? Because they'd like to say it never really existed. Another one of their tricks. So here we go. The grassroots of the Christian persecution is what we are seeing, and if you want to know about it, look in the right places. I'm sure you can work it out for yourself. You don't need me to tell you. So now we have a situation where, because national identity and nation building has disappeared because of alternative ways and alternative ways of being and living, understandable progression helps along a bit by, you know, progressive thinking. It's become that gender has become the defining criteria of who a person is. They'll say it's who I am. You respect who I am, or don't you want me to exist, sort of thing. It's no in-between land. You have to accept in your face who somebody is and they represent, and they will take that centre stage, and they will take that protected status from children and women to become the new ideal that is protected from birth with immutable qualities. They were born that way, and there's plenty of people bringing up children to make sure that they can support this new gender identity by being born a certain way. So now people also in mixed relationships tend to very much focus more on their gender roles. I'm very much a man, or somebody will be, because they have got an alternative kind of thing, but they want to reassess their identity as being very male, or the female is very female, because they're not really following the tradition, and they have to accentuate something even more. It often happens in sort of non-heterosexual situations and environments that, you know, obviously we get much more gender kind of drama. It's all very unpeaceful, because now that even puts people into camps where the feminists will say, you know, I don't really want to be booty of this kind of marketplace now, worldwide one, where you're not really of any purpose, even as a woman anymore. Breed a few children like cattle, because that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to reduce us to the level of cattle. I'll explain this now. They will first away take away the national identity, or the integral identity of what you see is not really of any importance. It's just a colour, a shape, it's just a flavour, a kink, you know, and you're not there to reproduce like a flower giving off a signal, like might have done, you know, I don't know, 150 years ago. Little House on the Prairie will be laughed at and dismissed and attacked, because Little House on the Prairie children won't be able to say where they got the nails done or the hair done, and it's that intrinsic jealousy of natural, integral that we're up against here now. So now, here we go, we've got this gender taking place now, where people want to be gendered, and males, you know, generally a tribal sense, and often more by people I've noticed pushing the male agenda, in mixed relationships, mixed race relationships, or, yeah, generally, because they feel, they think it's their ticket to really lay claim for their children or themselves, that their masculinity in a totally different way. Stamp market. I've just seen it. I've seen it countless times. Perhaps I'm not putting it too well. Perhaps that's not the point I'm trying to make right here exactly now. What I'm saying is that there's this male camp and the female camp, which is at war with each other now. Feminists are naturally being attacked, you know, by a counterpart, tribalist male demanding their rights over women. Well, these women don't want to be booty, harem, tribal kind of takings, you know. That's the kind of wartime situation, occupation situation, where we've seen the mass rapes that are going on in Sweden and in Britain, with children, where you're just sort of supposed to be taken and owned. No, there's got to be selection involved, and of course, this is where it's got all muddled up. And they give us be who you want to be instead of more divine selection, which raises people, females competing for the better male, males competing for the better female. Now, because we're all equal, all the same, communist like, it's supposed to be, well, where's mine? Where's my rights to my female or my male or my, you know, because they're not working in a way that's nation building or building a community that has any sense of togetherness. We're just demanding our rights now, like babies shaking a rattle. So this now is going to be replaced. Funnily enough, first of all, it's fallen under national identity. Gender is going to be under attack now. Well, those people who think they've got a safeguard in saying I am a female or I am a male, fighting each other. We've got the trans now movement. It says, well, actually, that's irrelevant too. You can discard that shell as meaningless as your national or any other integral inherent identity, because it's open for anybody. It's open day. So that domino is going to go too. So you hold on to your gender, your feminism, your male against women. When you have a lot of people mixing in your workplace, in your schools, I think you're going to see really the nature of it is we're getting less and less qualities, immutable qualities of humans that helped us to evolve, and more universal ones, yeah? Universalizing sameness. One of my videos I made 10 years ago discusses this sameness phenomenon, which is basically at war with strong integral identity. Now, if you have a strong integral identity by being a survivor or just knowing yourself and understanding all this stuff, you're going to be naturally under attack a little bit more, because that's not the way this dictatorship is working. Anyway, I hope I've managed to make some sense, and you enjoyed watching. Do read my book and follow my videos on Sam Hill 1970, Sam Hill 1212 on Twitter for a lot more